Today, Liss and I are going to explore our opinions or perspectives or ideas regarding disidentification.
Hi, and welcome to Light for Life. If you are returning to our channel, thank you. We value and appreciate you. Our aim is to shine a bright light on your inner splendor and assist to connect you to your magnificence via what we intend to be enlightened sharing, potentially educational, and hopefully entertaining information, as well as encouragement for new perspectives. If you are new here, you are most welcome. We do hope that you will find our content highly beneficial and enjoyable. I am Liz. I'm a science of mind practitioner and a teacher of various healing modalities applicable to all aspects of the self and this life.
And I am Lori. I am a holistic wellness researcher and educator. Welcome to Connections with Liss and Lori. We use the space to offer our perspective regarding multiple different topics that we certainly hope you find inspiring. I think it might be a good idea to start first with identification. What is identification? And then build on that and go into disidentification. So, what is it that we identify with? That's an encyclopedia in and of itself. We can identify as male or female, as black or white, as trans, as furry, as Democrat, as Republican. There's so many ways that we can identify. I don't identify as a religious person, but I do identify as spiritual. I don't identify as XYZ, but I do identify as PDQ. There's so many ways that we take on identifications. And I think what's important to include in that are ways that we might identify with trauma. We might identify with illnesses and diagnoses. We might identify with victimization. We might identify as a martyr. We might identify as a vampire. I don't know. There's so many ways that we could possibly identify. And in my opinion, with every identification, with every label that we wear, every label that we use to say who we are, to represent ourselves to the world, in my opinion only, it strips us a little further away from who we really are, from who we started out as a piece of source, as a version of the source of who we truly are, as a version of that oneness that brings us all together. And if I'm really honest, some of these labels actually make me kind of sad because it people don't understand how far they are separating themselves with every label they wear from who they really are. Many years ago, if I can just tell a really short story, I'm in the process of trying to understand who I am. I'm a very young woman, and I'm trying to understand who I am and where my place is in this world. And a friend of mine was staying with me for a weekend. And I came out of the shower, and I don't have any makeup on. My hair's in a towel. And she looked at me like she'd never seen me before and said, "Oh my God, you are so stunning." And I didn't receive that well because it was so uncomfortable for me to have anyone see me without full makeup and all of my hair did and all of the things that I was using at that time to represent myself to the world. And she said, "Would you ever consider not wearing makeup anymore? Would you ever consider not doing your hair like that? Would you?" And I couldn't even consider it at the time because it was so uncomfortable for me not to wear my costume that I couldn't even wrap my head around how this person thought that I was stunning stripped down to my true self. And I look back on that now and I think that was such a profound moment. It really catapulted me into really understanding all of the labels that we do wear and all of the ways that we insidiously allow society to tell us who we are. Especially as women, we need skincare and we need makeup and we need fashion and we need style and we need grace and we need all of these things to make us feminine and attractive and sexy and feminine and attractive and sexy. It's just so far from who we are at the core, from the essence of who we truly are. And I do hope that our short little conversation today at least opens the door to help people pause and consider, gosh, who am I inside? Who am I at my core? What is my essence? What does that look like? What does that feel like? And can we settle into that a little bit more and bring that wherever we go and whatever we do?
What a beautiful story, Laurie. Truly, what a beautiful story. And it does so encapsulate not just the things that we identify with, but the things that we mask with. You know, you and I are both sitting here. I think we probably each spent at least 30 minutes
Yeah.
making sure that our hair looked like this and our face looked as good as possible. And I don't know about you, but 90% of the time, I don't feel like all this.
No.
I really, really don't. I just want to be in my own skin and
Yeah.
shine my own light. And unfortunately, things like Zoom lights would make us look a whole lot worse than we actually do if we didn't do a whole lot of this, right?
Right.
So there's a compromise.
Yeah.
But absolutely, yes. To be able to recognize that within our heart of hearts, within the core of who we are this unique and just utterly brilliant light. And to truly embrace that with a greater sense of self than we do all these exterior and surface and very often false
Mm-hmm.
things. So yes, for me, that's what identification comes down to, is that it's always the embodiment and the fleshing out of some sort of a conceptual construct. It has no basis in reality. It's not an energetic, eternal state. It's a conceptual construct. It's a psychological archetype. It's a societal expectation. Or like you said, it's a label. It's a diagnosis. It's a definition. There are little boxes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Little boxes. And yes, every single one of them is an additional hurdle or barrier or block to that true light essence that we all are. So, however many more things we identify with, or mask with, or attach as ourselves, the more blocks and barriers and hurdles we've given ourselves to finding our true light and expressing that. So, the question becomes, if we have internalized things that are in fact false, that don't have any eternity or any real substance, and for that reason, any real value, how do we undo that? Because that's what disidentification would be, right? It would be the undoing of that. And so for me, all things start with a narrative. They start with a story. There's a story behind every identification. And that story has led to a certain way of thinking, which has led to a certain way of feeling. And that's what we've become in our embodiment. So if we can bring the light of awareness back to what is the narrative, what is the story? Because if it's false, it's a lie. Ta-da! If it has no substance and it has no value and it's false and it's a mask and it's a box, none of those things are true. So the narrative, the storyline is fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we're living. There's no authenticity in that.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? We hold the pen. Laurie, we hold the pen. We can re-script that story. We can start telling ourselves a brand new narrative that is going to birth new thoughts, which will lead to new feelings, which, ta-da, will be a more authentic state of being. And that's just happier. And not only is it happier, but it's freer. Because when we get out of those little boxes and we collapse those walls, we've allowed for expansion. We've allowed to become more of the light that we truly are. So not only are we being in our essence and being our light, but we're shining more of it. And I think that's the essence of life. That's what we're here to do.
I couldn't agree more. And I think when we start stripping away some of those labels, we immediately start feeling lighter in our physical bodies. Because every label, in my opinion and in my experience, every label that I put on just felt heavier and heavier and heavier. And to carry around all of those labels, I had no idea how heavy they felt until I started shedding them, until I started really, like you said, really self-reflecting on all of these I am statements. I am female. I am, XYZ. I am all of the things that we put on. It's like another layer of clothing and another and another and another and another. And before you know it, you can barely walk because all of these cloaks have become so heavy. And you start peeling those off and you can breathe again and you can dance again and you can float again. It's energetically really heavy to carry around all of these boxes and labels and cloaks, and some call it a shingle. I hang my shingle. It's very heavy energetically, can be very, very heavy. And simultaneously, what is the road to freedom? Disidentifying with all of the things that you say I am. And because so much of my journey has been with this chronic mystery illness, right? That's one of the labels that I hate to say that I am. It's just something that when people say, what have your challenges been? Well, some of the challenges have been a bit of a mystery. But when you start reflecting on what that really means, you can wear that and you can become the victim of that, and you can become the personification of the dreaded chronic mystery illness, or just acknowledge that it's a challenge in your life that you're working through, that's you can find the answer to. You just have to keep working on it and shed it someday soon and be free of that. There was a time in my life when I had no idea that it didn't have to be a permanent thing and that I didn't have to wear this forever. And then that, in fact, I didn't have to wear a single label ever again. Because that's just part of this human world. And we tend to identify so much with all of the different labels and the boxes and the shingles. It can really bog you down. And I would hope to encourage anybody to really look at what we're offering here today, to really consider what labels are you ready to say no more. I am not going to identify with that anymore. I declare I am going to disidentify with Lyme disease. I declare I am going to disidentify with having to be a lawyer, whatever. The examples are endless. What are you going to disidentify from today?
One of the most deeply profound energetic practices that anyone who's interested in disidentification could ever do is where you literally go into a meditative consciousness state where you choose to identify from absolutely everything. So you just sit yourself somewhere nice and comfy, close your eyes, and begin to disidentify. So the first thing you're going to disidentify from is where in the world you find yourself. So this planet, this country, this city, this town, this street, my house, let it go, one thing at a time. Then disidentify from the couch you're sitting on, the body you're sitting on it in, your name, your race, your history. Lose it all. Disidentify from everything until you're like a newborn energetic baby. Because that is how you connect to what your true state is. Because in your essence, you are none of those things that I just mentioned. It is harder to disidentify from things that we have made deeply personal. So to disidentify from our roles, so-and-so's wife, so-and-so's mother, the career I've worked so hard to achieve, the diagnoses and illnesses and traumas and problems that I have, my story, my sense of me, it's harder to disidentify from those things. And yet, if we will choose to focus on the higher truth, the eternal, that which is above all of our facts, focusing on that higher truth is what helps us to let go of these things that are surface level, this life, ego, incarnation, things. And then when we go into our deepest held emotional wounds and traumas, disidentifying from those is helped tremendously by minimizing what we've told ourselves about those things. Starting to tell ourselves a lighter, less awful story about the emotions that we hold helps us to let them go, because we're no longer giving them the same importance that they held when we were telling ourselves catastrophic stories about them. So disidentification, just like everything else in life, is a process that we learn how to do. And we learn how to get better and better and better at it. Until eventually, our only identity is in that pure I amness. And from that state of being, we get to choose who and what we want to be. Who am I choosing to be? And who do I want to become? Because the possibilities are endless. There's no limit at all to the choices that we can make, but who we are and who we become.
Thank you for connecting with Light for Life. If you appreciate reminders, please go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you can receive those notifications. If you would like to work with one of us, you can find our contact information in the About section of this channel.
Yes, thank you for connecting with Light for Life. Please share your insights, your questions, and your comments with us in the comment section below. We value your feedback. And we really hope that we will see you for our next episode. We upload one every Thursday. Until then, bye-bye and be joyful.
Until we connect again, we send you love and light.